Hey everyone, welcome back to the Python Beginner to Expert series. I'm Bhavesh and in the last video we talked about what Python is and why it's the number one language in the world. Today we are getting into the real stuff, which is Python variables and data types. So think of this as the absolute foundation. And believe me, you literally cannot write a single useful program without understanding variables. So if you skip this video, nothing else in programming will make any sense to you. So let's jump right in. So for example, in C++, what we used to do, we used to first declare a variable and declare the data type of the variable, which is integer a, and then we used to assign the value to that particular variable, which is a in our case. So first we will declare the variable as integer a, so the data type is integer and the value we are assigning to a is 10. But in Python we do not need to assign any uh, data type to it or declare it before assigning the value 10 to it. So we simply assign value which is 10 to variable a, and the data type will be automatically taken care by the Python itself. So what is a doing here? So a is pointing to a memory location, which is a random memory location given by Python, which is this particular number in our case, and a is pointing to this particular memory location, and the value assigned to a is 10. Now quickly, let's take a look onto the various variable naming rules which we need to keep in our mind while assigning the names to our Python variables. So in Python, you cannot just name your variables anything which you would anything according to your want, right? So there are some rules, and if you try to break them, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, then Python will throw an error in that case. So let's see the various rules. So the first particular rule is the Python variables can contain letters. It can also contain numbers, and it can also contain underscores. So using these examples, we can look how we can name our variables. So as I mentioned that we can use numbers, letters, and underscores. So we can uh, name or we can name a variable for Python as student underscore name and assign a value which is Python, which is Bhavesh to the variable student name. So similarly, we can also assign numbers or integers to our variable names, and we can also include numbers in our name of the variable. So age 2 equals to 22, which simply means the 22 is the value assigned to the variable name age 2. And we can also name variables starting with underscore. So uh, underscore score equals to 95. So it is perfectly fine while naming a variable in Python. So the second rule is we cannot start with a number. So as I said earlier, the Python name can contain letter or a number or a underscore, but it can start with a letter or underscore. Unlike that, we cannot start a Python variable name with a number. It can start with a letter or underscore, but not with a number. So let's take a few examples. So if we name our variable as to name equals to Bhavesh, it will give a syntax error. So instead, we can name our variable as name to and then assign a value Bhavesh to it. Okay. So I hope it is making sense. Now let's look on to the rule number 3. So there are no spaces allowed in between the letters of the variable name. We can use underscore instead. So for example, if we name our variable as student space name equals to Bhavesh, so it will again give us syntax error because there is a space between the letters of the variable name. So instead, what we can do, we can name the variable as student underscore name and not student space name, and then we can assign a value Bhavesh to it. So it will work perfectly fine. Rule number 4 is Python variables are completely case sensitive. So if you will assign a variable name as name which has the first letter as uppercase. So you can see these two examples here. In the first example, we have name starting with a capital N, and in the second example, we have given the same name to the variable, but it is starting with a smaller or a you can say lowercase starting letter, right? So these two are different, completely different variables in Python, and uh, capital N and lowercase n, Python will treat them as completely separate variables. And the final rule is we cannot use Python keywords. So there are certain keywords which are reserved by Python, and we cannot use them for naming our variables. So for example, when we book a ticket in a train, in a flight, so we get a seat reserved for us, right? So no one else can take our seat. Similarly, Python has reserved some kind of keywords for it, and they are inbuilt keywords. So we cannot use that particular keywords for naming our variable names. So few of them are if, class, for, and there are a lot of keywords like that which we cannot use while naming a Python variable. Now let's see few examples of how to assign variable names in Python. So using this assignment operator, which is equal to, we can assign a value to our Python variables. So here you can see we can assign a value 10 to a variable named a. So it is nothing but a variable which is of a data type integer, right? So we will see what are data types uh, in this lecture only. So just wait for a few minutes, and then I will be able to explain you what are different type of data types as well. So, for example, in this particular case, we have assigned a value 10, which is an integer, to the variable a. In this case, we have assigned 5.5 to variable b. And in the third case, we have assigned a value ml to a variable c. So, what are this? This is an integer. Okay, this is a float value. So a float value is nothing but a decimal value after a whole number. And whenever we have characters in our variable name, so the data type which we use for it is a string. So C is nothing but a string. Okay. So we will look onto these data types eventually in this particular lecture. And so here we have assigned three variables for Python, and now we can simply print them using the print command. So if we print a, we have a which is assigned to, we have 10 which is assigned to a, and similarly if we print b, so we are able to get the value 5.5, and similarly if we print c, so we can get the value as ml for c. So we can also simply print the values as a without mentioning the print keyword. So if we just type a, it will give us as a, and similarly if we type c, so it will give its value as ml. Okay, so these are two ways to print variables in Python. So coming to the next topic, which is multiple assignments. So what is multiple assignment? We can assign these particular values to these particular three variables in a single line of code. So what we can do, a comma b comma c equals to 10 comma 5.5 comma ml. Okay, but the string needs to be defined under double quotes or a single quote. Okay, so in a single line of code we can assign values to three or more variables as per our requirement. Okay, and coming to the next point, so we can assign the same value to multiple variables at once also. For example, a equal to b equal to c. So these three variables are assigned same value, which is ai, and we can do it in a single line of code. So if we print A here, or it will give as AI. If we print B and C also, so as each of them has value as AI, so we will be able to see same AI. Okay. So earlier you saw we were getting AI as a single value for ABC because they were not printed using the print command. So if we use print command and display it separately, we will get AI, which is assigned to all the three variables separately. Okay. So as I had mentioned, a variable is a location in memory which is used to store some kind of a data or value, right? So if we assign 3 to a variable x, so 3 is nothing but the value and we are assigning to the variable x, so it will get allocated a memory location in RAM or a memory or by the memory management system, and the value 3 will be stored inside that particular memory location for x. And if we print now, if I assign a different value, which is 2 to y, earlier I was assigning 3 to y, which was same as x. So they, both of them were pointing to the same memory location. But now if I assign a different value to y, which is 2, then the memory location of y or the address of variable y will change. Okay, so if I print the memory location, so it is different from earlier. Okay, so earlier it was getting assigned to this particular location, and now it is assigned to this particular location because the value got changed, and hence the memory location also get changed for variable y. Now let's talk about data types, and this is where the things get very interesting as well. So every piece of data in Python, it has a type, just like in real life. Your name is a text, right? Your age is a number, and your height might be a decimal number. For example, 5.2 feet, 5.10 feet. So it is a decimal number, right? And your name, what is it? It is a string, or it is a group of characters or a combination of characters. And if I ask you a question, for example, are you a student? So if you will be able to reply me yes or no, right? So yes or no, it is also a data type which is called as Boolean, which I will show you. So the first data type which we will talk about is an integer. So integer contains all whole numbers. So an integer is any whole number which can be either positive, negative, or it can be also zero. And the main point which we need to take a note of in integer, that it should not contain a decimal point, because a whole number cannot contain a decimal point, and an integer is nothing but a whole number. Okay, so if we take some real life examples, for example, age, it is an integer. Temperature, which is -5, or it can be a positive value, that is an integer. So number of students equals to 45, so it is also an integer. Year equal to 2026, it is also an integer. Bank underscore balance, so it is also an integer, because all of that contains whole numbers and no decimal points. So coming on to the second data type, which is float. So a float contains decimal numbers, or a float is any number with a decimal point. So some real life examples are height, because it can be in decimal. So for example, 5.9 feet, weight can also be in decimal, 72.5. The value of pi is always in decimals, which is 3.14159. Our GPA can also be in decimal. So all of these decimal numbers are called floating numbers or floating points in Python. The next data type is string, which is nothing but a text data or a combination of characters. So string is any text, any sequence or combination of characters, and it should be wrapped within quotes. You can simply use single quotes or double quotes, so both of them will work similarly in Python. So some real life examples are, for example, if I want to assign a name value to the name variable, for example, Bhavesh, a value to the city variable, which is Jaipur. So all of them can be assigned using single quotes or double quotes. And for example, if you want to assign an email, so that is also a sequence of characters, right? So we can assign it using string. So we can also even assign an empty string. So if we uh, name a variable or name a string as empty and just keep single quotes or double quotes and keep do not assign any value of it, any value in it, then it will be assigned as an empty string. So some real life examples are our name, address, email, phone number, any message, any text. So all of that can be assigned as a string. So you might be wondering how our phone number, which is usually text, so no characters are involved in it. So why it should be assigned as a string and not as an integer, right? So I will give you this as a homework. So search about it and write the answers in the comment sections below. Now let's talk about a final data type which is used in Python, which is a Boolean. So a Boolean is nothing but it contains just two values, true or false. So it is the simplest data type, and it is either true or false. So true is usually denoted by 1 and false is denoted by 0. So these are some of the examples. So is student, so it will be assigned to true if any person is a student. If he or she is working, then it should be assigned false to a student. So if a person is married, then we can assign true to is married, and if he or she is unmarried, then we can assign false. Similarly, if he or she has a license, then we can assign true to this particular Boolean variable. And if the weather is raining, then we can assign true to the is raining variable, and if it is sunny and not raining, then we can assign false to it. Now let us see examples in our code of these data types. So in Python, every value or every data has every value or data has a data type, right? And since everything in Python is an object, so data types are actually classes or and variables are the instance or the object of these classes. Okay, so these integers, strings, and boolean and floats, all of these are nothing but classes, and the variables which are assigned to it, these are objects or instances of these classes. So we have a common data type known as numbers. Inside it we have further diversifications, and these numbers are further divided into integers, floating numbers, which are decimal numbers, integers are whole numbers, and there is one more kind of number which is complex number, which has a real and an imaginary value. So all of these define are uh, falling under the numbers data type, and they are defined as int, integer, float, and complex class in Python. And also we can use a type function to know which class a variable or a value belongs to, and this is instance function is to check if an object belongs to a particular class. So if we use type, we can be able to identify the data type of a particular variable. Now let's see the real examples of it. So here a has been assigned a value 5, which is nothing but a whole number. So it is an integer, right? And if we want to check the data type of a, we can simply print a. So this is nothing but our statement within quotes. So it will be printed as it is, and finally the type of a will be printed as integer. So if I run this particular code, so it will give is phi is of type which is integer. Okay, so here phi is nothing but the value assigned to a, is of type is printed as it is because it is a string and it has been wrapped under double quotes in the print command, so it will be uh, printed as it is. So phi is of type, and then that we have used the type function for finding out the data type of a, so it is nothing but class integer. Similarly, if we define a value 2.5 to a, so it is nothing but a decimal point or a float data type, so it will give us as 2.5, which is the value of a is of type as it is, and type of a is float because it is a decimal value. Now coming to a complex number. So complex number has two parts, real which is 1 and 2j which is imaginary. So here it will print a is a complex number, and it will print the instance which is complex. So if I run this particular code, so here the value of a gets printed, which is a 1 plus 2j is a complex number, and here if we are printing the instance of this particular complex number, it is giving us as true. Okay, because it is a complex number indeed. Coming to our final variable data type, which is boolean. So boolean is nothing but a data type which contains just two values, true or false. So if we assign a to if I assign true to a and then print it, it will print the type of a, and it will give us the class as boolean. Okay, so that's all for the data types. So I hope you enjoyed this particular section, and keep following this particular playlist for getting your hands on Python and really transitioning from a beginner level to the expert level. Till then, keep learning and keep coding. Bye bye.